Welcome to this review. Well, Unwelcome is the name of the movie, and this is directed by John Wright, who also co-wrote this. Now, John Wright previously got the Tremors-inspired movie Grabbers. Now, if that was a Tremors-inspired movie, I wonder if this is the 80s Troll-inspired movie Unwelcome. So this one stars Hannah John-Kamen, who you may know, who played Ghost from the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, and I think you've got a recognisable face here as well in Colm Meaney, who you may know from a variety of things, probably most notable from the Star Trek franchise. Now, this is a kind of a horror comedy about kind of small kind of goblin creatures. It focuses on this couple who initially we see are living in London, and the woman is pregnant, played by Hannah John-Kamen, and one day they have a home invasion by some local thugs, and this ultimately puts kind of the fear of God in them, and they're kind of afraid of their own homes. But it just so happens that the kind of the boyfriend or the husband ends up getting an inheritance from an auntie who lives in rural Ireland, and they go there, and it's this kind of old farmhouse, and they're kind of quite glad to kind of get out of the city because of their obviously bad experience. They kind of are affected, so to speak. However, their peace may be short-lived, as there seems to be this clan of goblin-like creatures who live in the woods just behind their property, and they're warned by locals to leave out meat for them, and of course they kind of just dismiss it as local superstition, and to get kind of add to their kind of problems, they have this kind of family of stereotypical Irish pikey types who come to work on their house. They are causing some problems as well. Now, at this point in the story, Hannah John-Kamen's character is heavily pregnant, and forces will collude to make their lives difficult, you might say. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss what I think works in this movie. I have to say, I kind of liked this one. This was a fun kind of horror comedy that is a little bit off centre. It's a little bit strange, but not in the sense that it's a surreal film that you kind of can't follow and doesn't make a lot of sense. You can follow this movie, I would say, and it has a fun and interesting kind of storyline, which doesn't necessarily go in the ways that you think it might. I thought, oh, well, I pretty much can guess the plot of this one, and you know, there were elements of it, but I didn't get it at all. So what did I like? Let's talk about these kind of like goblin type creatures. There is actually a name that they call them. I can't remember what it is. It's some sort of Irish name, or they call them red caps. But there is a species name, I suppose, for them. But they were so well realised. For the moment, there's maybe one shot where I think the effects are a little bit wonky. But like 95% of the shots, I thought they were so well realised, and they look. I mean, they're kind of quite small. But they're so well integrated into the kind of the actors who are playing these obviously human-sized characters. The makeup, the kind of the facial expressions, you actually felt like these characters had personalities and things like this. And they're not on screen loads, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're expecting these a real kind of like monster movie, they're not on screen as much as you think. But when they are on screen, I think they are done so well. And it's like, it will remind you of that 80s movie Troll, but in a good practical effects kind of way is the best way I'd describe it. And, you know, we don't know much about them, but even the little we do know, I do feel that you kind of get the sense that there's a degree of individuals kind of within the kind of group, and they have a little bit of personality, and you even feel a little bit kind of bad for them in certain circumstances. So I thought they were very, very well realised. I also really enjoyed our cast in this movie of human characters. I thought everyone here did such a good job. Our main couple, I thought, surprisingly layered and nuanced, because, you know, we have this young couple who are, on the surface of it, very happy-go-lucky, you know, seem to be very kind of friendly kind of people, but both of them are affected by the kind of the home invasion that we see at the beginning of the movie. Hannah John-Kamen's character she doesn't feel safe in her own home. And obviously that's amplified for the fact that she was pregnant while these kind of intruders sort of came in and ultimately kind of battered her around a little bit. So she's kind of having that kind of pressure all the time when these kind of workmen come around and things like this. but also the husband or boyfriend, I'm not quite sure if they're married, I can't remember. He feels, again, a similar sort of thing, but he feels like emasculated because he failed to be able to protect his kind of wife and at that point unborn child. So, you know, he also has this kind of feeling of emasculation, and he's not kind of good enough, and he's not like a real man and all those sort of things. And these kind of mental kind of stresses are not overplayed. I think they're there so you can understand these characters' struggles, but it's not like that they're kind of like really heavy-handed with it. I actually think for the most part the outward kind of persona comes across as they're very kind of like happy-go-lucky and stuff, but you see the subtlety of the performances and the writing. So I thought that was really good. But we also have some other characters as well, and I don't want to say too much. John-Kamen is kind of this head of this kind of family of kind of somewhat kind of shunned group in this kind of local Irish community of kind of handymen type characters, and there's some interesting character work done by them, and I think the actors do a good job here. They are playing a little bit too stereotypes, but you know, these kind of people exist, I suppose. We also have the guy who played Hodor in Game of Thrones, more or less doing the same character to a degree. It's somewhat typecast, you might say, but there you go. So there's that. And I have to say, I think the story was interesting. I mean, the story isn't particularly deep necessarily, but there are elements here that I feel have a little bit of kind of mystery towards it, and you know, you wonder how many people know and how many people have an idea about what's going on and what the kind of the ramifications. So I was kind of quite interested, and I have to say, as the film goes on, it starts off relatively straight and gets a little bit kind of like more out there as the film kind of progresses, and certainly into the third act is when it kind of goes very kind of supernatural and fantasy-like to a degree. But it's not, even though there is a tonal shift, I feel it still takes you as the audience member on that journey, which I thought was pretty strong. And also I have to say, I love the music. The music in this movie was so good and really emphasised the kind of the scenes and things like that. Very, very good. You know, there was not a lot here that I have to complain about, if I'm completely honest. But what can I complain about, if anything? So, as I said, most of the effect shots are very strong. There's maybe one or two effect shots, bit of sort of composite sort of shots where the shots are layered over each other. They don't look quite as good as some of the others, but they're in the minority, if we're being completely honest. The kind of goblin sort of creatures are maybe not in the movie as much as some people would like, and again, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but the true antagonists to this movie are maybe not what you think. But I can imagine some people will be a little bit perturbed by, they feel it's a little bit of a bait and switch. And therefore maybe the kind of the pacing of this movie, some people might be a little bit put off by, because you don't see these kind of these creatures as much as maybe some people would want. And I think maybe the tonal shift would be a little bit off-putting for characters as well. If I had to have one other kind of more legitimate complaint, the very end of this movie I feel isn't particularly kind of, doesn't quite stick the landing. It's not bad, you know, I broadly understand what they were going for here, but I feel there are some elements there that were a little bit sloppily handled, the kind of the sort of broad stroke of the ending. And the only other thing I would say, there is, I mean, maybe this was a design choice. When we see these kind of like these sets, these kind of back garden sets, they look a little bit like sets rather than kind of a real kind of green area at times. And there's a little bit of overuse of like flares and sort of lighting and effects. Now, I suspect this was a design choice to kind of make it look kind of a lot more magical. If you think of J.J. Abrams kind of lens flares he always kind of does and things like that, it's a lot like that. And there are times where I feel it makes the whole thing look a little bit fake looking. I suspect it was a design choice to try and make it look like magical, but it kind of looks a little bit fake looking. And some of these kind of outdoor sequences look like sets rather than they're kind of shot on location. But overall, the minor quibbles, to be honest, I thought this was a thoroughly entertaining movie with some interesting kind of sort of subtle commentary. Even kind of like it comments on, for example, underlying feelings between English people and Irish people. And if you're outside of those two countries, you may not even know about that sort of stuff, but you know, it's kind of bubbling under the surface for some people at least. But I found it charming, and it's like it paints like this Irish community, not all in the same way. You know, not everyone's like that, and the kind of like we have like from very friendly people, others seem to be harbouring a little bit of kind of ill feelings towards our English kind of couple who just really don't care about that. And obviously, these kind of like the work done and the subtlety with these two, their two kind of like mental struggles and kind of how they're dealing with the trauma of that event in the beginning of the movie. I thought was fantastic stuff, and the acting, the characters, I thought were all great. I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. I would recommend this one. Do check it out if you haven't seen it, and if you have seen it, please do let me know what you think, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.